Yaitza, thank you so much for doing those slides from last year. Because if you look at those, there's really good stuff in there, women mentoring women and things like that, which just really requires us to be really deliberate about those things. So I'll stop there. I mean, I think the future's bright, but I think it needs to be nurtured and approached deliberately going forward. So thank you. I always get a lot of energy from this. I expect like an auditorium size room next year. So thanks.
Thanks, Mary. And I just was able to look up really quickly. Mary spoke in 2005 at the 3rd Annual Women in Atmospheric Sciences Luncheon in San Diego. I also want to just quickly introduce the incoming president, Mike Farah.
There he is.
Yeah, thanks a lot, Aaron, and thanks for that, Mary. Last year, I really had the pleasure of participating in the luncheon, although I made the mistake of thinking that I could just walk in at the last second because it was on the schedule. Oh my Lord, it was full. And so it was really a lot of fun, though. I managed to find a spot up against the wall and met a lot of new people and participated in the events and some of the things you saw at the beginning. And so I'm here as the president, but I'm also, like Mary, I've been in the meteorology world, first with the Air Force and a little bit in the private sector and several years with NOAA. And now I'm back with NOAA again in the Weather Service. And so I've had similar experiences, what Mary said. I've seen the atmospheric sciences and earth sciences evolve from certainly mostly male back when I came up to a much more diverse workforce now. But I know that just because I go to an early career and see roughly, 50-50 on male, female at early career, I know that that doesn't mean that we're done. There's issues of retention, there's issues of equality. And so frankly, I'm here for at least for today, not to talk too much. I want to listen and learn and participate in the breakouts. And so it's nice meeting you. Look forward to working with all of you as my term as president, and then throughout the rest of the time we have together in the society. So looking forward to the day. So
thanks,
Aaron, back to you.
Thanks, Mike. And so what we'll do now, if anybody's interested in joining BRAID, BRAID is, as I mentioned, the Board on Representation, Accessibility, Inclusion, and Diversity. We are kind of the home of the community for all representation across the society, LGBTQ, women, BIPOC. So if you are interested, please feel free to email me. I'll put my email in the chat. I'll see myself off now. Yaitza, thank you.
Well, thank you. Gracias, Mary. Thank you, Mike. And thank you, Aaron. On behalf of the Women in AMS Committee, a big thank you to all of you for being here. Facing COVID as AMS women is an unprecedented time that has highlighted our superhero power of being able to wear multiple hats and doing it in such a unique and respectable way. We made it this far, and we should all be proud. That's why we're here. We're here to share our experiences, but also to listen and learn from each other. We hope you enjoyed this platform and feel valued and included. At the end of the day, this is our purpose, to create a supported community within the AMS. With no further ado, let's wear some hats. Here, our stellar group of panelists. We are going to start with our student representation.
Hello, everyone. My name is Jeanette Gallardo. I am an undergraduate student at Texas A&M University. I'll be graduating in May of this year. So exciting. Kind of scary too, graduating into COVID. And I'm hoping to pursue a career in broadcast meteorology. Currently, I serve as the ambassador lead for the AMS Committee for Hispanic and Latinx Advancement, and I also serve as the senior broadcast coordinator for Texas A&M Weather Broadcasting. And back in February, literally just not even a month before the pandemic really hit here, I launched the first ever TV program for Texas A&M Weather. I hand-selected students to be the on-air talent, to be producers. I coordinated all of the logistics along with another student with the TV station that we were going to air our forecasts with. And then the lockdowns began and schools shut down before we even got our very first forecast on air. And that was a pretty big hit for me because I'd worked so hard on that since fall of 2019 to get this program started. And then going back to school this fall, there was a really real threat that the TV program that I had just worked so hard on would just die off because of all of the COVID restrictions. It was kind of difficult to safely continue that. We have a really small room that we do our broadcasting in. And so social distancing seemed pretty difficult. But luckily I persisted and I kept talking to super supportive professors, and I was able to get that TV program started back up again this fall with social distancing and masking. If you follow us on social media at TAMU Weather, you'll see us with our mask on, still delivering the forecast. But I really found that there's a lot of impact and super educational value in continuing that. So I think my main takeaway during COVID so far has been that what's really gotten me through and given me some sense of normalcy during these times has simply been community, both through Texas A&M Weather Broadcasting and through the Committee for Hispanic and Latinx Advancement here within AMS. So the main takeaway, I'd encourage everybody in here to find some sort of community, because it really is super awesome to know that there's always a group or multiple groups of people who are going to be cheering me on, who actually care about me and my success in meteorology. Even when I don't believe in myself while I'm taking all these meteorology classes over Zoom, that's been quite the challenge, but having community has really helped me. So now I'll let our next panelist take it over.
I think I'm next, is that right? Someone help me, yes.
Yes, Mika, you are next.
Okay, hi, I'm Mika. This is actually my third time at AMS, so I'm really excited. Thank you for the invitation, Aaron and others. So I'm Mika, I'm an assistant professor. I identify as like a climate scientist, atmospheric scientist, so I kind of bridge the divide there, but I more importantly, I'm a full-time professor of climate science. Uniquely, I teach that to art students at the School of the Art Institute of Chicago. So it's really cool because I get to teach science to artists and designers and creative folks. And that guides a lot of my, my practice and my research as a climate scientist, especially recently in the last year or so, and especially since the pandemic started. So yeah, I mean, I wanted to go into a little bit of that. I know I have like 2 minutes or something, but I wanted to talk a little bit about sort of my philosophy of the way in which I teach and how that has changed and sort of morphed with COVID. But the main idea here is that I think, you know, as climate scientists, I'm constantly thinking about the existential threat of climate change. And I'm also thinking about how solutions to the climate crisis are slow, and a lot of folks haven't really caught on to them. And I'm wondering why that is the case. I think a lot of it has to do with the fact that scientists are not always the best communicators. And I think I can say this as a scientist myself. And so my main sort of goal with my practice, with my research, is to involve artists and designers not only in the process of improving the communication of climate change through the production of like aesthetic materials or whatever, but also to include them in the process of the production of knowledge itself, the production of scientific knowledge itself, LOL. I'm only wearing one earring now, so that's that. So anyway, it's been a really exciting journey for me. I got my PhD at the University of California, Irvine in Earth System Science way back in 2012. And then I went and did a postdoc at the Jet Propulsion Lab, where I worked on sort of the interaction of fire and smoke aerosols from fire and climate and weather. And then I moved to the Art Institute, and now I'm doing what I'm doing. So I will be in the breakout room talking about academia and education and what it was like to teach 3 online courses to art students during a pandemic. But I'm here to answer any of your other questions. I also want to note at the end of this little spiel that I am transgender. I use she, her pronouns. If there's any other queer folks or trans folks who want to talk to me in the breakout room or afterwards, I'm always available, and I will post my Twitter handle in the chat for folks who want to get in touch with me in that way. So thank you.
Hi everyone, I'm going next. My name is Rosima Rios Berrios, and today I'm wearing the early career hat, primarily because like many of the other panelists, we're all wearing so many other hats. So currently I'm a scientist at the National Center for Atmospheric Research, or NCAR. I'm only in the 2nd year of that position, so I'm very fresh into my career. I mostly study hurricanes, but I'm also trying to branch out into other fields of tropical meteorology. Before coming to NCAR, I got a PhD from the University at Albany. And before that, I went to the University of Puerto Rico at Mayagüez, where yes, I see some hands, where I got my bachelor's in physics, and that's where I started to become involved with AMS. I spend most of my time doing research, as I said, so I'm wearing my research hat as well. And I enjoy mentoring students that come to NCAR, and also doing community outreach, like talking to high school students. So like many of you, I have been affected by COVID in different ways. So just before COVID hit, I became a first-time mother. And I'm a big planner, so I had big plans. I submitted a paper the day before I went into the hospital to give birth, and I had all of these plans of coming back to revise that manuscript, going around the world to field campaigns with my baby, and jumping back into research. And then, of course, reality is very different, and I've been, like many of you, just working from home. Learning how to mother, how to be a working mom, and a scientist, because I'm just launching my career. So I'm wearing the mom hat, working mom hat, Latinx hat as well. So I'm gonna stop there because I don't want to take away too much more time, but I'd be happy to talk about anything early career, mother, whatever we want to talk about in the breakout room.
Okay. Hi, everyone. My name is Heather Archambault, and I'm wearing the private sector hat for this forum. So over the past 2 years, I worked as a weather analyst at a hedge fund, and I work in the part of the firm that engages in commodities trading. So that tends to be highly weather sensitive. And by the way, that's an amazingly male-dominated area to be in, which is maybe a story for another day. But prior to joining Citadel, I was at NOAA for 4 years. So first I co-managed a research grants program, and then I went on and served as associate director of a NOAA lab. And before I was at NOAA, I actually was on an academic track. So trying to build my career as a researcher, publishing papers. I spent 3 years as a National Research Council postdoc. And that was right after graduating with my PhD from the University at Albany. So I guess my story is that my career path has been a winding one. And I think that reflects, I do have a strong belief in keeping an open mind about career, one's career, and not being afraid to explore opportunities that excite you, regardless of whether it's what's expected of you. So over the past year, there have been some good things. I think some good things for sure have happened this year, but there's also been a number of challenges. And like so many of you, I've been trying to cope with this kind of undercurrent, I guess, of feeling, just some anxiety about what's happening and maybe feeling a little bit helpless, just, not being sure, or feeling like a lot is kind of beyond our control. And certainly that can be made worse at it's a constant struggle for me to get good solid sleep, which I've realized this year is absolutely essential to my mental health and coping. So my way of coping this year has been to try to focus on what I have some control over, which has been work. So I've been very grateful to have a job that I would say is highly engaging and gives me a welcome distraction. But at the same time, I recognize that there is some danger there and having my identity just completely wrapped up in my job. And I'm very interested in always looking for ways to try to bring back that balance and some of that multidimensionality to life, I guess, before COVID. So I'm really excited about this forum. This is fantastic. I think it's incredibly timely, and I'm honored to have the chance to learn from you all today and to be part of this supportive community of women.
Next, we have Betsy.
Great, thank you. I'm Betsy Weatherhead, and I'm representing the public sector here. I started out also in academia. I was at University of Colorado Boulder for about almost 25 years, and then worked in the private sector with Yaitza, my great honor, working at Jupiter. And now I'm actually sitting in the Eisenhower building right next to the White House. And I'm in the public sector leading the fifth National Climate Assessment. So working across 13 government agencies, as well as working with our private and academic sectors to work in that direction. So as everyone else on the panel, I haven't had quite a sort of straight arrow direction in one particular goal-oriented way. I've been following my passions and following my interests, which is, I think, just a real luxury, a wonderful thing to do. I want to address a couple of things in our breakout session for the public sector. First of all, having spent so much time in academia and the private sector, I feel like I understand a little bit better what's unique and special about the public sector. But I also want to address some of the real opportunities. I know that COVID is offering us as women. And because I do think there are significant upsides to moving our careers forward at this time. And happy to talk about that more and listen to other people's thoughts on that. But I see a lot of ways that we can turn lemons into lemonade here, and I look forward to sharing those thoughts.
Hello?
Well, hello. Next, we have operational forecasters.
Hi, everyone. My name is Aisha Wilkinson. I am an operational forecaster at no affiliation of the National Weather Service. I just wanted to bring attention today that 140,000 women lost their jobs last month due to COVID. That's a pretty powerful statement, and it's factual. It's disappointing, but we have a lot of work to do. So I'm excited to be on this panel. This is something I always look forward to at AMS. I rush to the doors, not just because of the free food, but I enjoy everyone's company at this event. It's where I feel pretty much the safest at AMS. So in my experience as an operational forecaster, I joined NOAA and NWS at COVID. So I started my first job during COVID-19, right in the smack middle of April, and I was on telework for about 3 months. So you can imagine how lonely that must feel, moving to a new space, a new place, a new state, in Wyoming, matter of fact, and it was very difficult. But I am early career, so I have a lot of tips for people who want to just start out, and who want to navigate this federal world space, which is completely different from a student space. I also want to bring attention to what COVID has done. It's been a lot on us, a lot of self-doubt, a lot of, am I worth being here? Am I supposed to be here? Am I supposed to be on this panel? I thought about that before I even came here. And I just want you guys to know that you're worth it and you're supposed to be here. So that's what I'll be talking about in my breakout room, of how to get away from that self-doubt, how to know your self-worth, and how to navigate that federal space. So thank you for inviting me on this panel, and I appreciate all of you coming, and I'm happy to see everyone's faces.
Wow. I can step in here because I think I'm next, and Aisha, I will be the first to say, you saying that makes you so supposed to be on this panel. That's exactly the thought. And I so wish I would have had even an inkling of that 20 years ago in my early career. So thank you for being here. And thank you to everybody else. I want to share some pictures because I'm in broadcasting and I can't do it just me talking. It just doesn't work. I don't know. This is what I do for a living, I guess, is show pictures of myself, because I'm also super narcissistic apparently. But I just want to, in case people aren't familiar with my work, I think it does help. From tornadoes to that was more, to the hurricanes, that was Michael, where I was in Mexico Beach, to wildfires here, to the wildfires in Australia, to Mobile Bay in this most recent hurricane season that was so epic, to too many snowstorms to count. Meteorology has been my passion, and the science of meteorology, putting together that puzzle that is our atmosphere, is my, and was, and has been my identity. Speaking of identities, I found science everywhere. Swimming with a 400-pound Napoleon wrasse in the Southeast Pacific, and then here I am in the world's largest cave in Vietnam. We were finding new species as we went along, swimming with jellyfish in Palau, swimming with 15-foot tiger shark, rappelling off of buildings, skydiving, obviously gravity, lots of science there, para-hawking, telling this environmental story in Nepal while a vulture ate out of my hand and I paraglided over the Himalayas, flying a drone when drones were still new into a fissure of a volcano in Iceland with a geologist who was crying because it was so beautiful, to right before the pandemic, standing on the edge of Victoria Falls and telling a climate change story. Science is all around me. And when I ask myself, how did that ugly baby turn into the first female chief meteorologist at a network, I first think about all of the people who have worked so hard in all of the other positions to make these steps. And I know a lot of them are right here in this room. I ask myself all the time how that young lady with her clear braces got a chance to play Celebrity Jeopardy and lose, by the way, which is kind of embarrassing. How that Blossom fashion icon on the left and her best friend there on her own left turned into a different blonde on her left, who happens to be my best friend in my head. Taylor Swift, totally my best friend in my head. How do I get a chance to ring in the new year with Ryan Seacrest and stand on a red carpet and hang out with Elmo and kiss Kermit and interview former presidents about climate change? How did that awkward young woman, as she was growing and trying to find her identity, get to dance with the stars? Do a tango with a guy called Valentin Chmerkovsky and Paso Doble in front of America every Monday night? It's science. It is embedded into who we are because it is part of our identity. But part is that word that I think we'll focus on in the breakout session, because as I went through all of these natural disasters and experiences, I realized that there was me in the natural disaster, and then there was, of course, me as the natural disaster. And that's why I wrote a book about it, because the storms that I have covered have taught me about the storms in my life. And that's what I want to talk more about in the breakout session, because prior to COVID, we had people's lives flipping upside down every day, literally. but I wasn't paying attention to what was actually happening. I always choose this photo because it's very dark. I look very dark. And I was very thoughtful there. The girl who grew up watching storms on Lake Michigan and falling in love with waterspouts and seeing Joe and saying, that's what I'm gonna do, and going and graduating from high school and regrettably wearing that outfit, studying meteorology, coming out of college with so much experience and so much hope, running into these wonderful people who changed my life, Professor Knox, James Spann, who I did an internship with and is still a mentor today. There are not a lot of women in this list. I didn't have a lot of people, and I am so grateful to be in this room today and to be a part of this, because that moment when I graduated with all that stuff behind me, I still came out and I didn't get one call, probably because I included this with my VHS tapes, with the Adidas slides. Like, why would I put that photo in there? But in that moment, in that year of not getting a call back, my life went dark and I started having suicide attempts. My depression was extreme. And I have now, 20 years later, gotten to a really great place with my mental health. In the meantime, I had jobs. That was Flint. My husband said I looked just like the lady at the dry cleaner. I have this picture that I use often to talk about my lack of knowing who I was. This is a picture taken at my first job, very soon after my first suicide attempt. That bright, really forced smile is something that I have in a lot of screen grabs and a lot of those headshots. But it's something that I've grown out of and grown through. And I wanted to share with you guys, covering Katrina, covering these storms, moving to Chicago, working at MSNBC, paying attention and making graphs of my life where my career is skyrocketing and my mental health is not. It's a place I want everybody to get to. And I am the proponent of all proponents of this. 10 days before I started my job at ABC News, I checked myself into a mental health hospital. We are at the point in our society where we can all say it. I have anxiety, I have depression, but the stigma is now on the action. And so how do we get a person who was in a hospital a decade ago to be standing on Good Morning America stage and in front of World News Tonight? I don't think I'm an expert. I think that I still have a lot of storms. I think that I have a lot of things I want to work on. I'm still the first woman here. This was the 40-year anniversary of, GMA. I'm almost through. I'm sorry. I just have a lot of photos to share. The working in my basement, trying to write books for kids and leave some sort of scientific legacy. Talk about having so many hats. We all do. Those bright faces of my boys, the purpose in my life, the sunshine that I still see every day, even though there's plenty of storms around us, the challenges I still want to take on, and the storms that still happen and will happen. That is one constant we have, is the weather. And the one thing that I always bring with me is that the clouds won't last forever. They just can't. They won't. It's not how the atmosphere works, and it's not how life works. And that is pretty much what I wanted to share briefly. And that's what I'd like to get into on top of our identity, what COVID has done to what we've already done. You already compounded it, and now we've put on this whole other thing. So hopefully we can speak more in the breakout session.
Wow. Amazing and inspiring introductions. Thank you all so much for being here today. And I'm pretty sure that we are all excited to hear more. Now we're going to transition to the different rooms that you pre-selected in the registration form. You will be receiving an invitation to join the room. Please be patient while we are reconnect. And this part will not be recorded, as Aaron mentioned before. So I'm hoping that you share your stories and have a great conversation. So ready, set, go.